Hello and welcome to the Henley Partners Global Mobility Report webcast series. I'm Juliette Foster and I'm delighted to be your host and the moderator for this prestigious series of exclusive interviews with leading international academics and professional experts on the major and emerging trends in global and regional mobility. Grounded in geopolitical analysis and with a focus on the realities shaping our world, from COVID-19 to climate change to economic downturn and ongoing conflict, the Global Mobility Report series offers exclusive insight into mobility and migration patterns and looks at what we can expect in the months to come. Well, joining me today to discuss the latest regional migration and mobility trends in North America is Greg Lindsay. Greg is the Director of Applied Research at NewCities and Director of Strategy at its mobility offshoot CoMotion. Greg, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Juliette.
Okay, let's kick off because talking about immigration, give me a sense of context. How much has immigration benefited the United States?
Well, I mean, the effects are, of course, incalculable. I mean, the United States built on immigration. And we know, based on research by the Center for Global Development's Michael Clemens going back a decade, who described the benefits as trillion-dollar bills left lying on the sidewalk. But even taken anecdotally, we can look at, of course, the contributions to America's tech sector, for example. Elon Musk, the world's richest man who pioneered the electric automobile industry of the United States, Canadian-South African. Max Levchin, one of his former co-founders at PayPal, Ukrainian, who just had another IPO. So we can see the beneficiaries to the tech sector, to pharmaceuticals, of course, the vaccine rollout, all of these things. And of course, the United States education system also propped up largely by immigrants at this point. So yeah, the benefits to the United States are, of course, massive at the global scale. I mean, Clemens has estimated that 20 to 60% of global GDP could be increased if we allowed more liberalized immigration. And those effects, of course, have trickled down to the United States. That, of course, is until recent history stepped in.
Okay, on the subject of recent history, let's take a look at Donald Trump's presidency. And I'd like to know specifically, what was the impact of his immigration restrictions? Because immigration was a central plank in his electoral strategy.
Well, the damage there is incalculable as well. I mean, it'll take years for President Biden to sort of undo it. I mean, even starting on day one with his executive orders to basically end the travel bans that President Trump put into place, to basically restore DACA, to start creating a path to legal citizenship for America's millions of undocumented families. All of that, we'll see the effects. I mean, I can think of several areas, of course. President Trump's move to end H-1B visa immigration, which, of course, has been a steady pipeline of talent to Silicon Valley. Already, we've seen thousands of Indians begin to stay home that might have otherwise worked in Silicon Valley. There's papers that suggest that President Trump wiped $100 billion off the market cap of America's largest tech firms in the first 10 days after his H-1B visas. So, we'll be seeing these effects for years to come. And also, I think, the long-term effect will be in education. We've seen that basically the number of students in the United States from overseas had already been falling, and that entered precipitous decline during the Trump years. So can America become an attractive destination to foreign students? And can they undo the uncertainty of the Trump years? How can immigrants be certain that there will not be another demagogue like Trump emerging from the GOP in the years to come?
Yeah, because you said in that answer that there are some things which the new administration can tackle immediately. But what plans does it have for skilled immigration?
Well, that's one of the interesting things about the United States. I mean, unlike Canada here, where I now reside, of course, is, the United States has never implemented, a points-based system or a really direct system to attract skilled immigrants. I mean, the H-1B visa program is perhaps the closest to that. So I think it'll be interesting for President Biden because he is going to have to walk this very thin line, as past presidents like President Obama did, whose attempt to do bipartisan immigration reform in 2013 failed. Can President Biden sort of assert himself that America will attract more skilled immigrants while, of course, preserving that egalitarian ideal of DACA and the other programs? It'll be interesting to see if in his first term he's able to implement programs like this. But in the short term, of course, it's about protecting the so-called dreamers of DACA and sort of protecting those immigrants from Latin America and Mexico.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on this in that answer. It's this idea of striking balances because, look, the road that Joe Biden will have to tread is very, very complex because on the one hand, he has to strike this balance between attracting global talent. As you rightly outlined in your first answer, it is essential for every country's future, and certainly America has benefited from that. At the same time, he has to protect jobs for American workers. And this is something that Donald Trump pushed quite successfully when he was standing for election. But also, as well, he has to keep that political boat steady. Can he do this? And what is the best strategy to satisfy all three strands, if there is a best strategy?
Well, of course, this gets purely into the realm of optics because, as we know, I mean, economics paper after paper demonstrates that the benefits of not quite unrestricted immigration, but fairly liberal immigration in the United States is net positive. This notion of foreign workers taking American jobs has never been true. So, but that, of course, is a very difficult political message to send. Can he keep the boat steady? I mean, obviously, it threatened to capsize Obama's second term, and there's already political commentators arguing that Biden should be very wary of taking on immigration so early in his first term, of course, given the COVID pandemic and, of course, given the economic damage. So it remains to be seen if he can do this. But, of course, given the Biden base, given the fact that he's trying to keep an ethnic coalition together, I think it's very important for him to tackle this. We saw his weakened support among Hispanic voters in particular in the elections. So I think Biden sees this as a way to basically shore up that flank ahead of the midterms in 2022 and 2024. Can he do it? This will, of course, depend on what he can get through Congress, right? And this, of course, is where President Obama ran aground in 2013. And, can President Biden get this through with the slimmest of majorities in the Senate? I'm not so certain he can, but it will be interesting to see what he can achieve via executive order alone. And begin, if America enters a phase of economic expansion, if we have a V-shaped recovery or K-shaped recovery, we could see American appetite for increased immigration and economic benefits return.
And to a certain extent, that depends on COVID as well, because it has reached an appalling impact on the economy. And of course, the mortality rates tip to get higher, more people getting infected. So that could be the cover, if you like, COVID and its impact for as radical a policy as perhaps he can muster, given the political constraints.
No, absolutely. I mean, the other interesting, of course, with migration from Joe Biden is that, we've seen this change in consensus from a fiscal policy standpoint where full employment is the goal. So, thinking about, how do we basically get American workers off the sidelines? How do we basically get increased labor participation from the immigrants who are already here? COVID creates all sorts of, exceptional circumstances, to quote Nobel Prize winning economist Paul Romer, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And I think it'll be incumbent upon Biden to step in and ram this through while he can. And it'll also be interesting to see what the lessons of the Trump years are here. Can the Democrats basically ram through what they like and sort of ignore the immediate consequences and ignore the faux scandals that emerge from Fox News and others? That will be very interesting because obviously President Trump never felt encumbered by popular opinion. So it'll be interesting to see how President Biden reacts to any objections against his immigration reform.
But I suppose that one could argue that a lot of the issues that President Biden will have to wrestle with are typical not just of his country, but also of the Americas generally, because you've got countries like Canada, Colombia and Peru. Are they going to ease their residency rules? And how far are they likely to go?
We'll see what happens. I mean, I'm most familiar with Canada, of course, residing here, and it's very interesting. Prime Minister Trudeau has already said that they're going to increase the targeted number of immigrants in 2021 to the highest number since World War I. I mean, still lower as a percentage of population, but Canada is stepping up aggressively on this. And, one of the most interesting stats to me is that during the Trump years, the number of foreign students to Canada nearly doubled from 263,000 to more than 500,000 students. So Canada is already a major beneficiary of the stumbles during the Trump years of this. So yeah, I think if Canada's smart, we're going to see increases in immigration over the years because again, maintaining a young workforce, maintaining good dependency ratios when it comes to an aging population and young workers, there's going to be a global fight for talent that's on and a global fight for young skilled workers that Canada, that Colombia and Peru and others are going to definitely wage. So they're definitely going to see the Trump years as an opportunity for them and to their advantage.
Right, but the bottom line, Greg, is that what we're talking about in a nutshell is uncertainty. It's the uncertainty, the impact it has on immigration and residency, not just in the United States, but also its regional neighbours. So give us a sense of that, about the impact, and more importantly, how COVID-19 is playing into that dynamic. Is it really enhancing that sense of fear, this sense of not knowing what's happening next?
No, I think so. I think obviously the Trump administration stoked that sense of fear and uncertainty. What they did to international students, threatening to basically expel more than 1 million students with valid visas if they could not attend in-person instruction during the beginning of a deadly pandemic, I think sends a very strong message that, the United States may no longer be worth it if there are better options. Now, of course, the United States still has some of the best options of higher education in particular, but the rest of the world is quickly catching up and will quickly move into that vacuum that was created during the Trump years. So yes, I think, watching America have a deadly, out-of-control pandemic while other neighbors have done their best to get it in line. I mean, Canada is not that much better, for example, here, but the Atlantic bubble has succeeded. I think we've had a real-time test of global governance in the United States. Well, it failed it to some extent during the Trump years, and it's up to the Biden administration to prove that America can tame the virus and become an attractive destination again for entrepreneurs, students, and more.
Okay, Greg, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much for sharing your very valuable insights on the latest migration and mobility trends in North America.
Thank you for having me, Julia.
Okay, and thank you to our global online audience for your engagement and participation in the Henley Partners Global Mobility Report series.